send that out after this is over as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So we are going to be going through our de-escalation training today. First, we have to know what our objectives for the training even are. So we want to enhance our understanding of those human behavioral responses during crisis situations. So we're really recognizing how stress, trauma, and the environment actually affect behavior. We want to develop knowledge of effective crisis de-escalation strategies and interventions. So learning those evidence-based strategies to manage any kind of escalating situations. We want to understand how building trust and setting boundaries with residents can aid in de-escalation, especially on that prevention side. And we want to learn to apply effective techniques to manage any kind of challenging behaviors. So we're going to be going through those practical methods, including tips for any verbal and nonverbal communication, as well as your just body language awareness. Before we get into it, I'd love to hear from you guys real quick. Does anyone in here have a high behavioral facility? Or maybe hasn't dealt with behavior very often at all?
Hi, this is Victoria. I'm from Seven Hills. I feel like all administrators or anyone in a long-term care facility has experienced behaviors at some point. Maybe it's not often, or if you've worked in other buildings, maybe you have more experience in the past. I know my building in particular, we don't have much behaviors going on currently, but we have had issues in the past, and every full moon, it seems like.
That is so funny you mentioned that. I feel the exact same way. I don't know what it is about full moons, but they always get people riled up. I think they know it's a full moon. But that's awesome insight. I really appreciate that. Yeah, maybe not currently, but definitely could still be helpful for a future and for those full moons. So thank you for sharing. Amanda Lewis, we have some behaviors, but our staff do struggle with redirection at times. Near their own frustrations for downtime. Yeah. Absolutely. It can be really stressful. I mean, working in LTCs are stressful anyway without behaviors. So how can we keep ourselves calm throughout the day as well? So super understandable. Thank you for sharing that as well. Alrighty. So first and foremost, behavior is always going to be two things. So first, it is a form of communication. So this is true for everyone. Think about the last time maybe you or someone you love was giving you the silent treatment, right? So no one is verbally communicating anything, but that behavior is saying, I'm upset. So our behavior is letting them know, hey, this is what I'm communicating to you. And then it's also used to address those unmet needs. So everyone has a need to feel safe. Everyone has a need to feel in control of their own life. And a lot of the times being in the facility, maybe you're not feeling either. So our behavior is going to be directly related to those feelings, to wanting to understand and get those needs met. So then just a general description of a behavioral crisis. So this is a situation where a person's behaviors, actions, emotions, or mental state just becomes so overwhelming or disruptive that they pose a potential threat to the safety of themselves, others, or property. So these behaviors are often a form of communicating or indicating those unmet needs. So sometimes these behaviors can be disruptive to the point that the person is no longer able to function independently or is able to care for themselves. All of our clients, they're in the facility for a reason, right? So we want to be able to keep them as regulated as possible and keep them away from this behavioral crisis. So that way they can stay as independent as possible. So it really doesn't do much good to stop a behavior if we haven't figured out the underlying cause. Which is why we always want to address the person themselves and go through like the behavior individually and make sure you're always assessing, hey, what's going on here? So there are really too many causes to name. There could be really anything, but some of the more common reasons that residents of LTCs may be acting out could be things like being confused, feeling that discomfort or pain, or just being hungry and thirsty and not being able to express these needs or feelings. So, not to mention any kind of underlying medical issues. Maybe someone currently has dementia or Alzheimer's, or even just a UTI at this moment, and they may be more agitated than normal. So, the whole point of de escalation is being able to support and help someone before they reach this crisis phase. So, when one's behavior is escalating and with an increased risk of harm to themselves, others around them, or to property, as caregivers, we really must understand that it wasn't the actual event that caused them to become agitated, it's what they believe about the event that's causing the problem. So, this is what is called the ABCs of escalated behavior. And we're going to get into that in a moment. I like to give this example here of an activating event that may be exactly the same, but the belief is different. So I try to turn this around on myself for a moment. If the activating event here, someone texts me K. If my mom texts me K, my belief about that, everything's just fine. That's just how my mom texts. My best friend texts me K. My belief is way different about that. My best friend texts me K. What's going on here? Are you upset? Who made you upset? Are we okay? So my belief about that activating event is different. And it really boils down to the belief of it and not just the activating event. And people typically have more control over those beliefs rather than the activating event itself. So getting into those ABCs, it is so imperative that we understand that there is that strong relationship between our beliefs and the emotions, as this will help us when we are working to de-escalate a situation. Our goal here is really for you and the resident to learn and then know the difference between responding to a situation versus reacting to one. So here we are comparing the escalated behavior to a fire. Both share the same ingredients, so to speak. So first is A, the spark. This is that activating event. This is that trigger. So B is then going to be the oxygen. This is the belief. It is fueling the fire. And then C is the fuel itself that keeps the fire burning. That is that consequential emotion. So A, whatever happens first is what triggers the belief, and that triggers then the emotion. So goes kind of in that ABC set. So the A, or the activating event, is first. So this activating event is the trigger or the spark that started the fire. Activating events can be in the past, present, or the anticipated. It can be real or imagined. So this is the objective of what happened. An approach of curiosity really lends itself well to uprooting the activating event if it is not disclosed by the escalated person. So understanding what the activating event was, what this trigger was, will go a long way in being able to de-escalate. B is then going to be their belief of the event, the oxygen that feeds the fire. So belief is composed of a person's view or evaluation of an activating event. This is reflection of a person's silent self-talk statements. And these silent self-talk statements, these are going to be that inner dialogue about what's happening around them. And this factor can be relied upon in crisis intervention. This inner dialogue can be positive or negative. So understanding what their current inner dialogue is can help us flip it if needed. And then C is the consequential emotion. This is what's leading to the crisis behavior and making sure that fire keeps on burning. So one really should take great care to verbally reflect and validate the consequential emotion of a person in crisis. When you participate in this validation, you are rapport building and you are aligning with the person's emotional pain or discomfort. So you're really making sure to validate. And this doesn't mean that you agree necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you're sitting there like, oh, yeah, I'd be feeling the exact same way. It's that you're just understanding where they're coming from within their own body and their mind, right? So we want to make sure to understand them. So the body absolutely is then taking the moment to respond to this crisis. So there is that physiological response that is taking place. So the stress response is our body's reaction to a threat. This could be real or imagined again. So it's our body's fight, flight, or freeze response that helps us respond to stressful or even life-threatening situations. It's our body's way of working to keep us safe in what we perceive as a dangerous situation. The way each of us reacts or responds when we are triggered or upset is unique to us and to any previous experiences that we may have had. So by understanding how our bodies respond to stress and then normalizing that stress response, how we react when responding to a crisis, gives us the ability to respond and not just react to the situation. Anticipating triggers allows us to intervene and avoid those situations that can escalate a resident. Some examples of the body sensations that we or our residents may be going through include having tunnel vision or even hearing loss, tunnel hearing. I've gotten before, well, Liv, they just don't listen. Well, it may be that they're not listening, it's that they can't understand you, and maybe that they can't hear you. It's not that they're choosing not to listen, they literally can't. There could also be diminished cognition occurring. So they're trying again to understand and can't. They don't know the words that they're coming out of your mouth. They may be having that vasoconstriction, which is that shaky feeling. Some people experience this and just get even more concerned because they don't know what's going on in their body. Time distortion. So 2 hours can feel like 2 minutes, or 2 minutes can feel like 2 hours. So these are all going to be various body sensations of the stress response. And just imagine that this is what a resident's experience is when they're escalating. So understanding this can help us better anticipate and better support them because we're understanding how they're feeling in that moment. So next up, we are just going to watch a quick video here. And I am sharing my sound. And we will discuss right after.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up
Hello?
on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. And it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking to...
I genuinely think that video is so funny. Something about it gets me every time. Maybe it's because I'm wearing a sweater that's currently snagged myself, but I love it. But what was the point? Any guesses here about what was the point of me showing this video here today?
I'm keeping an eye on the chat, so feel free to comment in the chat if you would like, and I'll read it aloud for you if you're unable to unmute and share.
That sometimes people are not able to, like, hear what other people are saying until they deal with how they're feeling or like the thing that's top on their to-do list.
I like that you said it that way too. Like what is on the person's top of their to-do list?
Amanda in the chat wrote that being a good listener is a great intervention. And I would agree.
Yes.
Sometimes just listening, and I shouldn't say just, but listening in and of itself could be a great support, a great intervention.
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly what I'm getting at, right? So it's not about the nail. To us, it's about the nail, right? We know what's driving this behavior, but that's not on the client's to-do list. So being able to go through and pay attention and listen first and validate those feelings, and then going in at a later point, now that we are farther into the to-do list. I really like that. I like that to-do list analogy. Thank you for sharing. So before we get into any kind of further de-escalation, we want to be able to understand the escalation itself. So this diagram here is demonstrating the typical process of the anger arousal cycle. So understanding this is going to better allow us to understand when and how to apply these effective de-escalation interventions. So first and foremost is the trigger. The trigger then leads into the escalation. So right here, you'll hear me say, de-escalation is all about timing. These two areas here is where you're going to want to be able to de-escalate. Because after escalation, it goes into this peak crisis. Someone is fully dysregulated here. After that peak crisis phase, someone starts to go into recovery. So all of those stress hormones are slowly leaving the body. And then afterwards is this post-crisis and depression phase. So we're going to be going into these in more detail over the next few slides. So first is going to be basics of behavior modification, because we know it all starts with the trigger. Trigger is always first, that activating event. So the trigger then prompts the behavior. And again, these are based on our beliefs and not necessarily that activating event, that trigger itself. And following each behavior comes some kind of consequence. This is the event that occurs after the response. And lastly, depending on how the consequences benefit or disadvantage the person, there will be some type of reinforcement. If the behavior is producing the desired outcome, it is more likely the behavior will occur again in the future. If you have a child that's throwing a tantrum because they want ice cream for dinner, you give in and give them ice cream for dinner, they are much more likely to throw a tantrum to get ice cream for dinner again. Their behavior gave them the desired consequence. That is a reinforcement of them to continue the behavior. Same thing with our residents. We do not want to participate in any kind of bribery of a behavior. And listen, I've worked in facilities. Like, I don't want this to come across as any kind of judgment either. When you bribe a client with pop, when you bribe a client with chips, when you bribe them with a cigarette, they are much more likely to continue doing that behavior to get a pop, to get chips, to get a cigarette, because they know they can get something out of that behavior. So we want to stay away from that. But like I mentioned, it all starts with the trigger. So when we control the triggers, we control the behaviors. There's no behavior coming from no trigger. So when looking to control triggers, we can focus on these 3 items. First is those environmental triggers. This could be things like the noises in their immediate environment. Is someone really quiet and they can't hear? Or are things too loud and it's getting overstimulating? It could be the cleanliness of the area that they're in. It could be the weather outside. Some of our individuals, they love going outside for walks. Well, it's been rainy, it's been cold. Maybe they can't go outside anymore, and that is really upsetting to them. It could be personal space. It could be the schedule, what's happening in the media. And then there's also going to be things like your interactions. What interactions are they having with other people? This could be your tone of voice. Are you speaking to them with respect? Are you avoiding any kind of elder speak? Are you making sure to maintain their dignity? What is your verbal and your nonverbal and body language like? You want to notice how you are actually interacting with the client and if that may be pressuring them to behave in a certain way. And then we have those patient specific triggers. So this can include any kind of family contact. This includes physical health, mental health, trauma history, literally anything that has to do with the client themselves. And triggers are very subjective anyway. So just getting to know the client and what makes them upset will go a long way and be able to prevent them from getting upset. And then it's just we have to look at ourselves too. So what are your specific triggers? Are there any specific individuals or specific behaviors that no matter what are just like, I can't do this? I know I've had some of those. And then how do you respond to others in crisis? Are you actually paying attention to how your tone of voice is coming across? What are your nonverbal and emotional responses like? And then how do you work with those around you? Know when to tag team. So if one of your triggers is that specific person, and now that specific person is escalated, try to go and get someone else if you know you're not going to be able to de-escalate. Of course, that's not always an option that we have. So make sure to also just pay attention to your communication style and know what strengths you do have in a crisis. So I want to ask all of you, does anyone have any information they'd like to share here? Like, how do you work with others around you? Or do you have any personal triggers yourself when it comes to this kind of stuff?
Vaseline.
Oh, was somebody
And
trying to
then-
share something?
I don't. So this is Michaela. Michaela and Doc Megan. I
Yeah,
feel
go
like
ahead.
we're in a very quiet group, and so I'm trying to count to 10 before I answer any questions. So I think one of the things, and I'll just be like, I'm just being honest, right? I'm just being honest, is I think like one of the things that trip like when I come home, right? If I come home and I'm hungry and I need to wait for my significant other to make the fabulous food that he's gonna make for dinner because he had the day off. Like honestly, I'm hungry. Like I don't know if I'm really gonna listen to what he did that day until I have food in my, in my belly. So I'm going to be honest about that. Or sometimes, like when I'm on the phone with my mom, right? And I'm on the phone with my mom, and everything she says, everything is just something negative. Something negative. There's a negative situation on every end of her responses, right? Where it's like, Michaela, why don't you do this? Michaela, why don't you do that? Mom, why don't you be nice? Right? And sometimes I say that. I'm like, why don't you be nice? So sometimes I may not be able to hear what she's trying to say to me because she's not saying it in a nice situation.
For
So
sure.
I,
Oh my gosh.
I'm just putting it out there for everybody, opening the floor for other people to complain about their family members.
Michaela, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I am also someone who gets hangry. My lunch break is super imperative for me being able to provide a good training. So I super understand that. Kim, I need to have my morning coffee and breakfast to be a good listener. Yes. Oh my gosh. I try to keep myself at one coffee a day, but if I do not get that one coffee a day, I am cranky. Does anyone else know how they respond to themselves or others in this kind of upset situation? And like Kim mentioned, feel free to use the chat as well. Michaela, maybe it's just us who get triggered by being hangry.
I know it's Karen. I mean, don't get me wrong. The chicken I had last night was delicious, and the potatoes I had last night were delicious. But I had to supplement with like some pepperonis out of the fridge because it was a situation that I needed.
I so feel that. I got you. I for sure get hangry. Heck yeah, another one. I'm also cranky if I'm in pain or tired. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And genuinely, like, it just does go a long way. Like, when we understand and look at ourselves like this, it can go a long way in being like, oh, maybe that's the same thing for our clients right now. So it helps us take a step back and be like, all right, maybe they're hangry, maybe they're in pain. Let's get them a snack and some ibuprofen if they can have it. So, yes, thank you. So, we're going to go ahead and watch another video here on empathy. I love empathy. I love talking about empathy. Empathy is super imperative when it comes to dealing with, I don't know if I like that I said dealing with our clients, but when I'm going iPhone, I don't know your name, sorry, you're just iPhone. I get cranky going into AM, PM meetings when people show up late. Yes, because you're trying to get started and then all of a sudden you have to catch them up. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Feel that. So I love talking about empathy. This video here is on Brene Brown. She is great and goes through the differences of empathy and sympathy and how empathy can make a huge difference in building connections.
Turn back time on your engine with Valvoline Restore and Protect, a first of its kind motor oil.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in
Oh, sorry about that.
order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right. So that video is so important, as it does just go through empathy. And it really is all about that trust and rapport that you're building with our individuals to actually de-escalate them, right? So if you take nothing else away from my training today, remember to be empathetic. If we know we are cranky, then we can take for whatever reason, then we can take their perspective and understand they may also be cranky here for this reason. So that gets us into applied empathy. So having applied empathy, you're literally going through and applying empathy to situations. And empathy is absolutely a skill that you can develop and practice. And it is made up of these 4 principles here. So 1 is staying out of judgment. It is not our job to judge the individuals in our facilities. They're there for a reason, and our job is to care for them. And then taking another person's perspective. Step into their shoes and understand they may be cranky for this reason. 3 is recognizing the emotion. So clarify and understand what emotions are actually being experienced, and then communicate what you notice or recognize back to them. We always want to be able to clarify, and they can clarify for us, but it is just you stating your understanding. So you want to make sure to participate in that active and reflective listening. And I want to take a moment here. I'm not here to tell you that I am the best de-escalator ever. I will communicate what I'm noticing, and I may be completely wrong. That's okay. You're showing that you're trying to understand, and I promise you, your clients will correct you. And that's fine. You're still showing that you're there to support them. So then we just want to make sure to offer that validation, empathy, and assistance. This is because in order for de-escalation to be effective, people really need to feel heard and cared for before they can even move on from that crisis. So we want to make sure to practice any kind of statements of validation and empathy, which allow a resident to feel heard and understood. So it could be literally saying things like, I understand that you are frustrated with this. I see that you're feeling this, or I'm sorry that this happened to you. And then you want to bring in statements of assistance, showing that care and concern. How can I help you with this? What can we do to make things better? What would help you feel safer? And then we're going to get into empathy blockers. So these are actions and beliefs that may have good intentions, but almost always backfire instead because they're not actually building empathy, they're blocking it. So first is going to be one-upping. So your client comes to you and says, I'm exhausted. I only got 4 hours of sleep. If you turn around and tell them, well, I only got 2. I'm sorry you only got 2 hours of sleep, but that was not the point of your client coming to you and telling you, I'm exhausted. There's then emotional educating. So you should listen or read this book. You should go and do that. You're just feeling this. You can go lay down. Again, they may know what they're feeling. They may know what's happening. They're not coming to you for that right now. They're coming to be listened to. It could be rescuing, just doing the task for the person. It's not about doing it sometimes. Sometimes it's about helping them help themselves. And then there's storytelling. So similar in the vein of one-upping, well, let me tell you about my experience with this. Shutting down those emotions, so just cheer up or just calm down. I can tell you for a fact, every single time I've been told to calm down, I have not. If it's not going to work for you, it's probably not going to work for your individual. Any kind of sympathy. Ooh, no. You want a sandwich? And listen, I'm not here to demonize sympathy. Sympathy itself is another good thing, but it's not empathy. It's not building that connection with someone that we are looking for when it comes to de-escalation. So I'm not here to say, if you're sympathetic for someone, that's a horrible thing. It's just that we want you to be empathetic with our individuals instead. It could be correcting. You're wrong. That's not how it happened. Please do not do that. Everyone's reality is different. I could probably talk like a whole nother hour just on subjective reality because it is so interesting to me. But correcting is literally just going in and telling them, you're wrong, this is what happened instead. When someone's upset, they don't want to hear, you're wrong. And then those silver lining statements. So at least your family comes to visit you. Well, maybe their family is abusive. Maybe their family is taking advantage of them. Maybe their family is toxic in some way. And you've completely disregarded everything that that person may be experiencing because you mentioned, well, at least they come to visit. So just be careful with any of those at least statements. So, wait for the out.
Take your time in French Lick, Indiana.
So here we have a quick video from the movie Inside Out. So Inside Out is a really awesome movie that we love here. So Inside Out is about Riley, an 11-year-old girl, and her emotions as she is struggling to adjust to a big move and a new life. So the movie really highlights the idea that all emotions, even the difficult ones like sadness, are necessary for healthy development. So we're going to go ahead and watch this.
No! No, you can't take my rocket to the top! Riley and I are going to the moon! Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this. Oh, here's a fun game. You point to the train station and we all go there. Won't that be fun? Come on, let's go to the train station.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time. We had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
So Kim, I see your little reaction. Yeah, it's so sad. But sometimes that happens. Everyone experiences sadness. Everyone experiences depression. What's important is to have that empathy, right? And not just try to make it better when that's not when someone needs. So that is a great example of how to use empathy to help someone just feel better. So getting into our core principles of de-escalation here. First and foremost, we want you to stay in the moment and understand what's going on. We then want you to use that applied empathy. So staying out of judgment, taking another person's perspective, recognizing emotion, and then communicating it back to them. And then we are addressing the behavior. So addressing the behavior and understanding what caused this to happen. Because that behavior is that communication. Address that communication. Communicate back to them. And then escalation typically is occurring due to the individual's beliefs about a situation and not the situation itself. And for someone to stop a certain behavior, generally they're going to need an alternative or replacement behavior instead. So it can be helpful to offer distractions or other ways to meet their expressed needs. Encourage them to do an activity that they are known to enjoy. It could be playing a game, working on a craft, or even just talking to someone. So, and we should also be teaching and reinforcing those positive and healthy coping skills. So making sure to do things like journaling, listening to music, or practice deep breathing. One thing that I want to note here is that if someone is in a peak crisis, that is not the time to teach and reinforce that coping skill, right? We're not teaching someone stop, drop, and roll when they're actively on fire. We're teaching people these skills outside of emergency situations so that way they can use it in these crisis situations. And just remember to pick your battles. So it doesn't matter who is right and who is wrong. It just matters that we are all being safe. And power dynamics will almost always escalate the situation. So just remember that we do not all share the same reality. Everyone in this meeting right now is experiencing this training differently. So it's a really interesting topic. Just understand that if your resident is stressed out, just support them through that. And then your safety. So ensure that there are no barriers between you and the exit, and always leave yourself in out. Make sure to keep equipment and personnel clear in case a hasty exit becomes necessary, and have multiple exits when possible. And provide extra space when approaching, and do not get too close to the individual. Do not swarm the resident with multiple team members. This is a very aggressive action, and that may only further escalate them as well. So select one individual to engage while others hang a few feet back. Make sure to stay calm and open-minded while using any kind of non-judgmental language. So just asking them about how things are going to work, Make sure to always think about dynamic factors instead of static factors. So static factors are factors that either do not change or change very slowly. Instead, think about dynamic factors that may be changing very quickly, like their mood, it could be stress levels, what their family is like, it could be their physical or mental health, things that could be impacting them in this exact moment. And make sure to use that trust and rapport that has been established. So I know we're coming up on time here, so we are going to go ahead and get into our nonverbal and verbal communication. By all means, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we can address at the end as well. So first, recognize your non-body language like. What is your facial expressions like? Is your body language really that you're closed off? Are you crossing your arms? Are you scowling as your facial expression? Well, those things are telling your client, I'm upset. That's only going to make your client more upset. So make sure to just be open. And I'm not saying you have to go around smiling all the time. That's not normal. But instead, just be open, right? And then watch your touch. Some people love a touch on hand on a hand. Some people hate it. Oh. Oh. Can you guys still hear and see me okay? I see my video's frozen.
You are frozen, but I can hear you. But
Okay, yeah.
your actual picture is frozen.
That's so funny. I just got a little like blurb being like Zoom is not responding. And I was like, oh my God, did I get kicked off?
No, we can hear you okay.
Okay, great. Then I'm just gonna keep going.
At least I can hear you okay.
I'm gonna take that as a good. All right, so your gestures as well. Make sure to understand any gestures that you may be sending off, as well as your interpersonal spacing, otherwise known as proxemics, and where is your focus of attention. And then we have the body language cluster. So you can compartmentalize the body language into 3 different zones. First is going to be your face. It's going to be your upper half, so your waist up, and then your lower half, waist down. This is important to know for our body language hand gesture planes. Excuse me. Where are your hands at? If your hands are going to be below the waistline in that last body language cluster, you're generally going to be seen as less trustworthy, right? If your hands are going to be above the shoulders, you're excitement. You're on the roller coaster, you're at the concert, something's going on. So just make sure to be aware of where your hands are, especially as it relates to your body language. And some of the positive responses. So make sure to acknowledge that emotion. Remember the 4th applied empathy application. Communicate the emotion, communicate what you recognize. Make sure to set limits. It is absolutely okay to set boundaries. Just make sure to be truthful with your client. Participate in any breathing exercises and have sensible self-disclosure, getting partial agreement, and make sure to avoid telling others what to do. Instead, give them options and let them know, like, hey, would you like to do this or this? And it gives them as much choice and freedom as possible. Some de-escalation techniques, make sure to maintain that calm.
Uh-oh, did we lose Olivia altogether? I'll give her a minute maybe to come back. If not, we only have a couple minutes left, so you really received the majority of the training. So maybe we can just spend the last couple minutes with any questions or any topics of discussion for the last few minutes on de-escalation, any maybe barriers that you're running into. I'll leave it open for discussion. Otherwise, I also just wanted to alert everybody that December's topic is self-care. And that will be on December 17th at 3 p.m. So you can contact your development person for that link, or feel free to put your email address in the chat, and I can also send you the invite link. But like I said, we have a couple minutes left. Any comments, questions, any points of discussion for de-escalation? I think Olivia did a great job of giving us a good intro, a good overview to it. If you'd like to unmute and share, please feel free. Or if you'd like to put something in the chat, please also feel free to do that.
This, I mean, this, I will just speak up because I've been speaking up the whole time. I will say that this presentation was really great, especially the video on empathy, because I will say as a director of nursing, like I honestly am challenged by empathy because I always want to go to problem solving. And so I really appreciate this section on empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go quite a far ways to join with the client or to sort of meet them where they are. If you are able to express, not just have the empathy, but I would say also express it is key. It's one thing to have it and to think it and to feel it, but it's a whole other situation to then communicate it, speak up to a client when you are having empathy. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to just do one more thing. If there aren't any questions, or like I said, please feel free to put anything in the chat that you want to talk about for these last couple minutes. Otherwise, I'm going to put a survey in the chat. If you could complete that, that would be very helpful. It helps us to come up with future topics for these trainings. So I will put the link in the chat, and then I also will share a QR code. If you just give me 1 second here. If it's easier for you to do the QR code, please feel free to use your phone to take that survey. So you should see both the code on the screen as well as a link in the chat. If you wouldn't mind doing that survey, it'd be very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you so much. I even said this before we started. I said I'm in the office, so my fingers are crossed on the Wi-Fi.
That's okay.
So thank you for your patience, everyone.
I think we pretty much covered the bulk of it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, hopefully I really got like everything there before my Zoom crashed.
Yeah, I think we got the majority of it, and we just reiterated, empathy. While you were, I don't know how long you were gone for, Olivia, but we just really emphasized not just having empathy, but then communicating it is the key.
Yay! Yes, exactly. But yes, please take the survey. And if you guys do have any questions or concerns, let us know.
But we appreciate everybody attending. I hope it was helpful and interesting to you. And I also hope to see you in December for the topic of self-care. So Olivia and I can hang out for a couple more minutes, but it is close to 4 o'clock if you need to go. I understand, but please feel free to hang out if you have other questions or other comments you want to talk about. Appreciate you all coming today. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting, and I look forward to seeing you guys next month. Talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye. Thank you.